Welcome to Anyhoney.
And the Newt. Welcome to another episode of Anyhoney and the Newt.
We have here my dad, who is also my lookalike from 30 plus years, the fellow journeyman. Say hi, Dad. Say hi to the people.
Hi, Dad. Hi, people. Glad to be here. Thank you guys for asking me. I really appreciate it, and I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, we're really glad to have you as well. As just a reminder to our viewers, we're spending this season talking about love and relationships and trying to understand what that means in a lot of different circles. So we talked about love of basketball. We've talked about player relationships, player organization relationships. And now we're reaching out to some of the experts in our lives, our family and friends that can just share their experiences and insights into the nature of love and relationships. So we're really glad to have you here to share your wisdom.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I understand you have a few questions for me.
Yeah. Let's start really easy. Here's an easy one. What is love? Nice, big, broad, general question.
I know that's an amazing question, really, and probably unanswerable. Well, let me start with the thought. I'm a student of the game, and so during this journey, I will probably say I have learned. Okay. In the beginning, not when I was born, because I believe that I was born with love and knowing love, or at least in the receipt of love. And during my life, I learned other things that were not loving. And as I traveled, I started to develop my own definitions of what that feeling was. And most of it was intellectual and probably more sexual in nature, ego-based for me. The best definition I found, I learned from a book, M. Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled, which is something I read and then carried because it resonated with me. Editing table.
Is that M. Scott Peck calling right now?
That was. So, and it said their love, to me, my summary of it is that love is the caring and nurturing of another's spiritual growth. And it really also included myself, but I didn't take that. I took the caring and nurturing of another's spiritual growth.
That's great. I was curious. I mean, initially you kind of said what's not loving, the things that you learned was ego-based. And here in this quote, we see that it's nurturing for an other and focusing on an other. I think sometimes when we talk about being in love, maybe the early infatuation and romantic stages, we talk about the way that it makes us feel. So I wonder if you can talk about maybe that contrast between our feelings and the fact that it might be other focused.
And I know the term falling in love, and I've learned that, we're not falling, and in love is not the direction. We are learning to love. Now, when I meet somebody, that first love feeling is just tremendous. It's exciting. It's, you can't think of anything else. All you want to do is talk and be with this person. It's, it really is centric. It's not about that other person. I'm trying to satisfy something in me. And then all of my my guards and my fronts come up because I'm trying to present the best me. My son Jason might call it peacocking. Walking around just, flashing myself. I'm the best catch. And my ego would say to people, you'll not find a person like me. That I'm almost embarrassed to say now.
That's interesting.
I was going to say, that's really interesting, especially when you have this idea, like you've mentioned, when you shift the focus from the centric to the elevation of another, right? When you see that other perspective and you've been in it for so long, like you said, it is kind of embarrassing to think of love as this. It's like, it's not really selfish, but it is kind of selfish, right? Because it's like, this is the feeling that you have, so you don't really have that other perspective. So my question to you, Dad, is how do you know when you are successfully loving someone else?
That is a really, really good question. My answer is, I think I never know. It's a quest. Lorraine and I listened to a talk from a spiritualist named Thich Nhat Hanh. And in there, he posed a question, an exercise. And he said, ask your partner, how can I love you better? So now it's not on me. I don't have to figure that one out, because let's face it, we're guys. We are born to figure stuff out, figure shit out. That's what it is. We want to fix it, whatever it is. So we get into a relationship, we get to an argument, we got to fix it. What is it? Something's not right. We're not happy. We're not joyous and free and giving. And suddenly we're faced with a dilemma. I got to fix this. When Thich Nhat Hanh presented that question, I cried because I did not know how to ask that question. And if posed to me, I didn't know how to answer that question.
And it's definitely very disarming.
Yeah. It just says, over time we change. So the person I knew 5 years ago is different. They have different needs. So, you could ask them and they know. Women, the first thing I wanted to say too was, men have some serious misconceptions. I love men because I'm a man. I mean, we're cool people. But we're idiots. We're wandering around trying to figure shit out. Women have their finger on the pulse and understand love, I think, much better. When they're grounded and spiritually based, they have a much clearer view. That's probably why they laugh at us all the time.
This is really interesting. I like this idea of being other focused and for their spiritual benefit, for their kind of entire well-being, not just for pleasure. We've been kind of focusing on for lack of better words, maybe the romantic relationship, the kind of partnership. But that definition seems to be able to be extended to taking care of children or loving a neighbor or a friend. I wonder if you could talk about the differences in those relationships.
I know that was one of your questions. Do you differentiate a loving romantic partner, family member, and so on and so forth? I looked at that question and I started to smile because in my past, it would have been different. Yes, because I was sexually oriented. Of course, my love for my partner is going to be different because there's a benefit on the other side if I'm different with her. But the truth of the matter is, when you're truly loving, that love is really the same. It emanates from you in the same way. It's not about control. It's not about what I get out of it. It's, the embodiment of a host of virtues,
Mm.
all of which are, compassion and gratitude and humility and tolerance. Most of all, it embodies listening.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great.
So I don't see it now as differentiating. When I show up for someone and I'm in a loving state, in my peaceful state, I think I show up the same way. I hope. That's what I always hope.
I wonder if, even if it comes from the same place and exhibits the same virtues, do you think maybe the time spent or the intensity might differ? Like, how would you differentiate a close friend from an acquaintance if you're exhibiting the same virtues?
That's a great question, because there's an element of trust. I also have to protect myself. I can't walk out in the world, and even though a lot of spiritualists talk about it, that they love everybody the same way, the new person and the people that they've known for a while, but I'm not that evolved. I have to put my guard up. There's an element of trust, and I used to carry a thought, that I had a long fuse when it came to trust, and that it took quite a bit for me to stop trusting you. And then once I stopped trusting you, we could say the word love, you can replace that word. Trusting you, that was it. And I was hard and fast on that. And again, that's another statement that I'm almost embarrassed to say, because that's saying that you'll never change. That's critical. That's, hurtful. That's, but there is an element of trust right in the beginning to see if I could let my guard down, because I want to.
I want to go a little deeper with Corbin's question. And if possible, could you characterize some of the ways that you would love someone differently? Whether it's a child, a sibling, Lorraine, your spouse, or even I'll go into this, mom, your ex-spouse, right? You guys.
I was just going to say that. I recently went over to see mom, and to pick up my golf bag and possibly the gardening tools. And while we were there, I apologized for the hurt that I caused. And when we hugged, we both shed a tear for that. And when we hugged, I told her that I loved her. So there was a period of time there that it was different. I was in an upset, and but truthfully, I still felt the love. And when I was there, I was who I was supposed to be. So loving for a child, there's other responsibilities, because I'm a guider and a teacher. That's part of nurturing the child. I don't have to do that with a partner. I don't have to do that with a friend. I'm also a provider. I don't have to do that with a friend. I do that with my partner. And for the children, children taught me, you guys taught me the most about love, about nurturing, about being still and removing my ego. You guys taught me the deepest part of love is laughter.
Normally we just want to focus on trying to pry out of you guys as much as we can and save our commentary for later. But I just have to say some of the things that you've said resonate pretty deeply with Confucian philosophy, and you've brought in some heavy hitters as well. Thank you. But this idea of expanding our circles from the self, learning to care about family and care about the community and care about the nation and then care about the world at large. And then also the idea that what differentiates isn't the concern for others, but our responsibilities in those relationships. You know, playing the role of the father is different from playing the role of a husband or a citizen in a city, right? And
Yep.
so I think you've put your finger on a pulse where love isn't different in general, it's different in practice because of what we have to do with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. You know, I think when you say in practice, it's understanding what we conceive as our responsibilities inside of it. And, you know, those don't come that easy. I walked around in the early times with Lorraine. I just look back now and I look at it like I was clueless, completely clueless. I didn't know how to show up for anything. And she didn't either. And we started to learn how to show up, what our responsibilities were. I learned a lot of things by watching how Anthony and you react, how the kids interacted with each other. I certainly didn't know how to show up because I was very centric. You know, I was still just trying to take care of me and build me and whatever that is. So I think it comes down to learning what other people's needs are, community needs. You know, the community needs something different from me. Maybe they just need my time. You know, maybe they need a strong back to build something, or sharing of ideas. Friends sometimes just need somebody to listen. You know, I don't know what other categories there are.
That's good. Those are good examples.
Yeah.
If I can add one thing, you kind of mentioned this twice now, this idea that love is a partnership. And in our previous conversations, Corbin, I don't think we had gotten too deep into that connection about partnership. We talked about, you know, when we talk about love of game or love of each other with regards to basketball, it was always one person or the other and how they were working in that partnership. But you, Dad, have talked, you know, about your partnership with Lorraine, you know, your partnership with myself or Jason as children, your partnership with friends, and this kind of like mutual beneficial aspect to the relationship. I had a question and now I don't really have it. So Corbin, you might have to help me out here. But the question is something like, if you could talk a little bit more about what it means for a relationship or for love to be a partnership. Does that make sense?
It makes sense because I was already thinking about what you were saying, and the word expectations comes to mind. So I believe for a partnership to grow, you know, maybe what we need to do is remove expectations. So if an example and a saying that I say with friends, I mean, I know you know me as the man of 1,000 sayings, but expectations are premeditated disappointments. So when you levy expectation on somebody or go into a partnership, a business partnership is different, but a relational partnership is about a give and take. And, you know, you are you and I am me. And if we find each other, that's beautiful. That's a poem from a long time ago. I think when I remove the expectation, I give it space to become what it needs to be, because everything we do morphs in ways we never expect, no matter what it is, even a business. When you allow and keep yourself open from your heart, not your mind, and just observe, knowing and having faith that you can handle whatever comes up.
Yeah, it's good. This might be a difficult question to probe too deeply, but you mentioned that the business partnership is different from some of these other partnerships. And the first thought that came to mind is maybe in a business relationship, it's transactional. You're going to do something for me. I'm going to do something for you. We'll set down those guidelines in a contract or have a verbal agreement. And once those are satisfied, we're done. Or if it's an ongoing thing, like as long as we're holding up our end of the bargain, it's good. In a friendship or a love relationship, it doesn't seem to be quite as transactional, but you also mentioned like once trust has been violated enough, it can end. So what's the difference maybe between the transactional nature of a business relationship and the limits of a love relationship?
I would also add, you said when the transactions are completed, I would also add violated to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh my God, you know, I can't hear you anymore. I think I'm going to lose my connection about 5 minutes. Oh my God. I didn't know I was kidding. But let me see if I can gather myself with this. You know, in a business, because I know, you know, you mentioned in one of your questions was about conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And the question that brought up to me is, can you ever lose love? Okay, so yeah, if something's been violated, or a trust has been violated, or an expectation has not been met, there's several levels of severity. You know, you've got with businesses, you've got things that, you know, confidentiality and so on and so forth, and they can all probably sit in the same place. But what comes to mind in relationships is the thought of toxicness. So, you know, you can still love the person, but you might not be able to be around them. So, yeah, the love is different because part of it is protecting yourself, because, you know, I can't love you if I don't really love and respect myself. So can we say that in a business that a toxicness can occur when things happen and a transaction is completed? That's not toxic. That was possibly satisfying. But when a trust is violated, the toxicness sort of shows up. And then we have to make a decision. So this again is one of the student of the game type things. I'm still learning it. If you hurt me bad enough, I'm going to rage. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to hate you, feel like I hate you. But can I still be in a place of love, but realize that you may be toxic to me and that I might not be able to be around you? So does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's great. It makes me think about, I wish I could remember the source, but this quote of the opposite of love isn't hate or anger, it's apathy, right? So,
oh man, I was just going to ask that too.
So like our anger is an expression sometimes of that love, you know, because we're invested in the relationship and we want to see it grow. Whereas if you do something to hurt me and I just don't care, that shows a bigger tear in the relationship.
Yeah, and things happen, you know, a thought that Lorraine and I try to live by is live and let live. And we don't know who the people are that we are interacting with. And if we can be unconditional with our love, then we can be in a space where there's always some room. I now understand that people can change. I've changed. And that I don't need to shut the door forever on it. Yeah, I mean, there's egregious acts, murder and things like that, you know, finding a place of forgiveness, which is also a virtue of love. You know, I haven't been in that frame, so I don't know, but I certainly admire the concept.
Anthony, you were going to ask something along those lines. Did you have a point you wanted to make or something you wanted to follow through on?
No, you completely scooped me. I'm still kind of formulating I guess the question. And maybe you guys can help me out. We talked about, conflict versus love. And our specific question is, how does conflict impact your view on love or close relationships? And I don't think we quite answered that question. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Not
And let me
really.
just add a term. Not really. Okay, that's fine.
I'm okay. I can answer it. I had thought about it.
Well, I would just throw out there, like, one of your favorite themes, Anthony, is redemption and redemption stories. So we've talked about forgiveness for the other person, but maybe the idea of redemption comes into play here with conflict.
Well, redemption, isn't redemption the payment of something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I can't quite grasp the word redemption with it unless I'm pounding my chest, which is ego based.
Mm.
But in conflict, the first thought that comes to my mind is, okay, what's the commitment? So, in a partnership relationship, actually with any relationship that you have, even with the community, if it's understood that you have a strong commitment to this, then it's all about weathering the storm. If that makes sense, it's about, okay, yeah, we don't agree. Lorraine and I got into some serious fights. She wanted to throw me off the terrace. I mean, she got rageous. And I would tell her, I said, how could you say that? I mean, I could never say that to you, that I want to throw you off the terrace. And she goes, that's just what happens to me. And there were times where I shut down after a conflict, but my commitment never wavered. So, nothing that I know of could make me stop loving someone as long as I stay with my commitment to the relationship and growth. When something is bothering you, it's not about them. Usually when there's something that's bothering me, there's something that's wrong with me. And I should take a look at, and that's where the growth comes.
Yeah, that's interesting. I love this idea that our relationships with others, focusing on their spiritual growth, has the side effect of helping us grow spiritually. That's a really nice, it comes around full circle.
Damn learning, damn growth. You talked earlier, we talked about transactions, right? And I find it interesting that you use the word commitment here, because there is some element of transaction to that. Not entirely, like you don't necessarily have to give something, but that commitment of, whether it's just being together. And so, like, even in these moments of conflict, there's this this value that you have that no matter what will keep you there.
Yeah. The interesting part of it is I'm human, and I certainly, even with your mom, I certainly, when I got into arguments, even with friends, the pain was so great. I just, it's fight or flight. And I just wanted to run away. So the thought would come up is, why am I in this? Why am I in this relationship? This is stupid. How could I do this again? You're sort of like that same feeling, because it's not the first time you get into a conflict. It brings up stuff that is already there. It's been there. Your self-criticism, everything else that kind of you learned all the way up until now. And, when that happens, it's a reconciliation time. So when I look at that and say, okay, it's just a moment. My commitment is strong. I'm in this for the long haul. And I could say that to pretty much everyone. Even when I did jobs for companies, I said, I would always tell them I'm in this for the long haul. even though I may have left 6 years later, but the idea was right now.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I'm concerned, the long haul is second by second.
That's
So,
nice too. Yeah. I think we've worked through the prepared questions, but is there anything that you'd really like to share on this theme or concept that you feel like we didn't touch on?
not really. I think I may have danced around the thought that it's an ongoing process, and that, you know, we never really know it all, but if we stay open, keep our hearts open, and are willing to listen, miracles occur. You know, we can put up walls, we can put up, you know, shields to protect ourselves, and that's, you know, what we've learned that we need to do. But sometimes we have to put a few cracks in it, because that's where the light comes in. And it's the light that really allows us to grow.
Thank
I
you.
mean, Anthony said it. What did he say? He said, you know, damn growth. But that is well put. I get that. It resonates with me. Like, what the fuck? Like when Lorraine passed, I was like, really? When she first got diagnosed, I was like, really? It's like, what the hell? And then I just had to keep myself open and just see what was there, and have faith that I could handle whatever came up. That's an extreme case. But now put that in the grocery store person, where the person's writing a check and you're the 10th person in the line behind that person. You know, where do you find a space to be okay with it?
Yeah. Wow.
Two extremes.
No, that's good. Again, the fact that maybe love's concern for the betterment of others is general, and then how that takes shape in each relationship is different because of our responsibilities to that particular person.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. And we have to remember too, we're human. It's okay to be human. It's wondrous to be human. We're not perfect. And I'm certainly not perfect. I still have road rage, you know.
Oh, guilty.
So I still have disappointments. I still make mistakes. I still inadvertently hurt people. And it's what we do with it after that. So.
No, that's great. Well, thank you for sharing. Anthony, do you have any final thoughts or?
I do have a question, but I kind of want to save it for after this conversation. It's about the road rage, and it doesn't really apply. It kind of does, but it doesn't really. It's like a future conversation, but I do want to ask you both about it.
Well, let's have the conversation. We can stop the recording one thing, but we have this footage for the future if need be.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I have a question for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
You go first.
You know, I said, you know, and you brought it up, Corbin, about the conflict, and it always drives a question for me about, you know, do you ever stop loving someone? And I have a question: is there, you know, are there conditions that you place on your definitions of love?
That's great. Anthony, do you have initial thoughts, or I feel like I'm jumping.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, even I don't know if I would say I stopped loving them. And the reason why is because, like, even when I haven't talked to somebody in a really long time, I still think about them from time to time. And like Corbin, you said earlier, you know, if I didn't really care about them at all, I wouldn't think of them ever beyond that moment of it. Like, you know, if you bump into somebody at the grocery store that you've never seen before, that person will never cross your mind again. Whereas if somebody took a swing at you, you'd probably remember that guy in a much different way. But like, you know, college roommates who I don't talk to, or, you know, people from my childhood, they'll like memories will still pop up, and it'll bring up these feelings of fondness or even love, friendships, that sort of thing. It kind of like pushes me to want to reach out to these people, or at least try and find them. So I think that says something about the nature um, of love in detachment.
And I think I was trying to get at this question when I was bringing up the difference between a transactional relationship and a love relationship. I feel like if the conditions are spelled out, like I'll love you as long as A, B, C, and D, that's just a contract. So I tend to think more that we probably have unwritten rules or expectations that we're not even aware of ourselves, that the love relationship can be altered or violated. And then the question is, do we pursue reconciliation, or is this the kind of toxic relationship where the most loving thing to do is to go our separate ways? But as a divorcee myself, I will say that I still love my ex tremendously. Like I want what's best for her. It's just what's best for her is not us being together. At least that's how I see it. So.
That's a perfect definition. That's, and yeah, I agree. We, walk into things. We have conditions. We just do, because we don't want to be hurt. We don't. I can't open my heart to everybody, even though that's a goal. So, and the corollary question to that was, what are you afraid of? And I think you answered that. I just answered it too.
Yeah, getting hurt. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And there are levels of that. I mean, hurt, you can bump your head, but when the heart is hurt, it's so much deeper, because it goes, I don't know where it goes. It's someplace else. And a lot of times I'll turn that on myself. It's, I become that unworthy, undeserving person that I may have always thought I was. And that's when I am not loving myself well.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
Slavoj Žižek also talks about how if I could list you everything I love about the other person, that's also not love. Like that's me getting my trophies or whatever. When I love so-and-so, I love them. I might like their hair. I might like the way they walk. I might like how they say a certain word or funny things they do. But that's because I love them. The love of them is supersedes any of those particular things. You could take all those things away and I would still love them.
that's wow. I think you just put me back in the I got a lot to learn category. But but yeah, you're right. I love the word trophies. That's almost embarrassing to say. But no, that's a wonderful statement. I love that.
I was going to say, spoken by a guy who's never had all those things change at once.
So you wanted to talk about road rage, huh, Anthony?
One thing that we started to tease out and throughout all of these conversations is this idea of, I don't want to use the word communities, but I'll call them circles, like relationship circles, right? So there's like these close-knit circles, siblings, essentially all family, partners, life partners, even close friends. Then a larger circle would be not as close friends, but friendships mostly, maybe some work relationships fit into those categories. And you keep building these circles going out to people who are acquaintances, people who you might have met, bumping into in one way or another and had a conversation with, people who you've never met at all. This is where the road rage comes in, right? People who you are interacting with technically, but you don't ever see them, you don't ever talk to them. And I wonder how, I don't want to use the word love, but I wonder how these relationships extend. One thing that I keep thinking about is, especially in conflict, right? When you're really close with somebody, at least this happens to me all the time, you have like a shorter fuse for the way things are done. like you talked about the person at the grocery store writing a check, right? If you're like with a significant other of some kind and they're writing that check, you're like, just whip out your debit card already. Let's get this over with. Right? You have that freedom of closeness, so you can say that sort of thing. And if you're standing right next to a person who's doing that, who you don't know, you're thinking it for sure, but you definitely don't just say that out loud unless there's something wrong with you. But then if you're 10 feet away, you know, and there's 10 people between you two, you might say to the person next to you, geez, why won't this person just take out their debit card? So it kind of comes full circle in the closeness. And I'm just wondering how you guys make sense of that.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
had
know.
some, I can't remember them though.
If you think of them, feel free to interrupt. The one thing I wanted to comment was the person who's 10 feet away talking to their neighbor about that person, right? What's interesting about that is they're building a relationship by sharing their misery. Right? We can identify that that's awful. And so that's one of the reasons that gossip is so infectious, right? Is because we get to share in this mutual antipathy towards this person, or this mutual enjoyment of their suffering, whatever the gossip's about. But it's a dangerous thing to do because it automatically pits us versus them.
Yeah, and that I think Lorraine explained to me one time was that, you know, that's how most people bond, through gossip or through criticism, you know, and that kind of relationship is typically shallow. You know, it's very difficult to form because, you know, it's got teeth, you know, it's meaty, it's, you know, you can feel your blood boiling and all of that. And I've got a friend of mine who, you know, talks with regards to like road rage. He would say, if somebody cuts me off on the road, he would say to me, he would hope that they get to their place safely because maybe they have an emergency or something like that. I still can't get that. I tell him, you're crazy. I said, you should be, you know, throwing the bird up and stuff like that. You know? Especially because he obviously was looking to cut you off. But, you know, he's probably more evolved. So that's okay.
Good for him. I can't do it. I feel like I used to when I was younger have that kind of grace on the road, but as I've gotten older and I feel like I've seen more and more selfishness on the road, I just want to put big heavy panels on my car and become a battering ram.
There you go.
Why wait for the panels?
And I love the analogy, you know, that you brought up about the person in the grocery store, because I'm certainly rolling my eyes, taking a deep, oh my God, looking for another line that I could go on right now. You know, and waiting for them to say, I'm sorry. It's like, you know, everything that I've talked about is just negated. Everything that I think I've learned, my evolution has taken, you know, Neanderthal steps back. So like,
it's interesting though, if they do say I'm sorry, like if they're like, I really don't have any other way to pay right now, I have to write this check, like that diffuses everything. Like all of a sudden I'm like, oh yeah, I get it, you know, I can wait one more minute because you're in this situation that you have to deal with.
No, that's a perfect example. There is a way to kind of identify, and once you identify, all is good. And Anthony, you brought up something too about the shorter fuse, and that was something I also had to learn, that I was nicer to people I didn't know than I was to people that were close to me. And I had to turn that around. Not that I would become nasty, with a stranger.
Walking down the street, he push his son over. Let me help you up over here, sir. Now it's the other way around. I'm going to push this dude out of my way.
Yeah. Come on, Anthony. Let's go shove this guy. All right, Dad. but I had to,
nothing brings
to learn.
nothing brings close up like commiserating, right?
That's right. And you know what? It's all about awareness. It's, when I'm starting to feel that rage, really, that was one of my phrases to Lorraine was really, when I said that, I had to stop. I was like, because now once I've got awareness, boom, all bets are off. I have to stop. I have a choice. So
Interesting.
I had to start to learn to be nicer to the people I love and elongate that fuse than I am with people outside, strangers. That was great.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that when something is contextualized, our minds are able to cope with it better, right? In that situation, like Corbin, this is the only way I could pay, and I'm sorry that this is going to take a little bit longer. And then everyone's like, "Oh, okay, no big deal," right? I always thought that if we could have like little signs that scroll on the back of our windows, on the back, the back of our cars, that people would be a little bit less short on the road. Maybe that would help alleviate road rage. Like if you understand my situation, like, and somebody could totally just write, "I'm just an asshole." And then you're like, well, at least he told me.
Yeah, because we're saying, oh, he must be an asshole. And if he
Right.
sent a note saying, I'm just an asshole, oh, see? Like that.
Now you're not mad anymore.
Yeah.
I know which cars to ram and which ones not to.
That's right.
No, I do think that this is interesting about the coming to understand the situation and the context. And what that really says to me is what Louie's been touching on about, at first it's just self. I'm only concerned with what I'm concerned with, and your slowdown is interfering with what I need to do, right? But if I can just take that moment to reflect and think, you're also a person that has needs and things that need to be done, and how can we both kind of cooperate to attain these ends? All of a sudden we're sharing in this enterprise instead of me being like, I'm being inconvenienced by you and by your life.
The great philosopher, the Joker, once said, actually, nice. It's funny because I've actually been thinking about this phrase a lot lately. In The Dark Knight, the Joker says, everybody's cool as long as it's all going according to the plan. Whatever the plan is, if it's going according to the plan, everything's fine with it. But as soon as it's not, that's when the switch flips. And so every time something that I perceive as negative happens to me, I just think like, what plan was this written down in? Because, then I have to like rationalize, like, there really is no plan. And so that helps me become okay with the situation, even though it's not part of my plan, right? I always have to say like, this, just because it's not part of my plan doesn't mean it's not okay.
That's brilliant. You guys bring up some brilliant points, and that's a good one. I like that. Everything is okay until, something goes awry. Then, now, and I love what Corbin said, it's all about me, of course. I'm an inconvenience. Don't you know who I am? That's a great phrase. No, they don't know who I am. So, the CEO of one of the mega billion-dollar companies walks into a supermarket. You know what? He's just another shopper.
Right.
And
until he asks you, where can I find the diamonds?
It's in the rough.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for the conversation. It's been really enlightening.
Thank you guys so much for asking. And any other time I could join you, let me know. It'd be fun. This was really a lot of fun. And thank you again. Yeah, you guys asked some really tough questions. Every time you say that, I would just want to dive down a little deeper. I was like, oh no.
No, you handled it great though. You had a lot of depth to plumb.
But you asked some really great questions, and I'm gonna go back thinking about, I do have a lot to learn, and that's okay.
I think you're coming for my job here. Soon it's going to be the fellow journeyman in the new Anyhoney.
Well, you mentioned that you were the lookalike, right? So we can just have a replacement if you're ever busy.
Right. We're gonna put
Yeah.
Anthony through the Facebook ager.
Well, Anthony one time called up Lorraine on the telephone and mimicked my voice, which wasn't too hard. And she didn't even know. She got pissed
Yeah,
later on when she found out.
she was really mad. But she got over it really quickly, and then she was like, "This is funny. This is
But
good."
Lorraine was like that. She could be rageous, and I could never understand how she could be so red, and then, you know, whereas I would hang on to stuff, it would have to be diffused. It was like I stored it, put it in a nice place, and then let it out a little at a time. And I would sit with it for a while. Plus, I would bring a bat, beat myself up over it. She could hang on to stuff. There were things that she was a powerful being, and we had a good time.
Oh,
But
that's beautiful.
I like that, Anthony. I like that. I'll never forget that. All right. Well, I didn't think we'd take this much time, but that was good stuff. It was wow.
Thank you, Dad. I just want to send a quick sign off to everybody. Thank you all for tuning in this week, and stay tuned for more interviews on the Fellow Journeyman and the Newt. We'll see you next time.